And our first order of business, instead of talking to our vice chair, is to welcome our new members. Unfortunately, Commissioner Harris had a prior appointment, but welcome, Mr. Irving, Mr. Sereno. You'll both be well needed. And having said that, we need to approve the meeting minutes for the August 3rd meeting, and we're going to call on former Vice Chair Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have reviewed those minutes. It's been a while since we met last, but everything is in order, so my motion is to approve the minutes.
Have a motion? Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Instead of following our regular agenda, we've got some people that have got some pressing appointments, and I want to move item 24 up to the top of the agenda, and then we'll move item 18 up. After that, we'll go back to our regular lineup there. So, Solid Waste Fund Budget Transfer for Legal Services. I want to call on Mr. Christensen, our attorney. There were some questions the other night at Property Management about some legal fees that we incurred, and he's going to explain that per the discussion out of that group.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I watched the Public Works meeting yesterday, and I'm happy to give this committee a little bit of overview of that. If you all recall, the commission sought to hire an outside counsel from Baker Donaldson, a environmental lawyer specialist, to assist us in particular any issues that we're having ongoing with Republic and the landfill. There were some other ancillary issues or matters that the commission desired that attorney assist us with respect to the Pratt recycling contract. There was some fair amount of onboarding between me and that lawyer, bringing that lawyer up to speed. As the committee and the other members know, there's a history here that is fairly elongated, and being an outsider, I had to bring the attorney up to speed, and I tried to package it up as best I could and as neatly as I could for him, but there was some initial digging that needed to be done. They also assisted in drafting some correspondence to Republic. If the commission recalls, we received a letter from them, and we had to respond to that letter, and so they assisted us in that. And then, like I said, that attorney has assisted in drafting, or rather reviewing, the Pratt Recycling Agreement, LOI. And as we remember here, Nashville lawyers aren't cheap, and so their hourly rates are significantly higher, and so the fees can accumulate, but we're still in a very reasonable amount. I've been looking at those bills and have been trying to limit the activity where I can to be a steward of the taxpayer dollars towards those fees. I'm happy to answer any questions.
The only thing I want to bring up, and this came out of the committee, there was some discussion about maybe a session after our next commission meeting. I personally didn't feel like we needed to do that. I don't know if there's other people who have that opinion. You have a quick opinion on that?
Well, to the extent that the commission would like to get any further updates about any of the legal disputes between the county and Republic, I am happy, if asked, to address those in an executive session. I'm happy to do that if needed. If that is requested, I don't think that the way that the posture of things remain, I don't think it's necessary for the outside lawyer to travel down here for that. I can be a suitable conduit for that information.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
A couple quick questions.
Yes, sir.
Approvals. Who approves the legal fee statements? Do you, or in mayor perhaps, or who is the approval? What's the approval process?
Yeah, well, I can do my best to give it from my point of view, but I don't work in the finance department, or I'm not the county mayor. But I will say that the commission did approve and authorize the hiring of that outside counsel at the fees that were explained. And I guess just by modus operandi, the lawyer I'm his contact with the county. He kind of goes through me because we talk the same sort of language. So he will send me the bills, and I forward them on to Mr. Smith, and they get paid. That's kind of how it was. But from a legal perspective, I certainly want to make sure that the fees are reasonable. So I do review them, and from my review of them, they have been certainly reasonable for the services provided and the expertise that we've obtained.
And are there copies available if we want to review a copy of the invoice and any work product?
Yeah, I'm happy, Commissioner. If you would like one, you can go ahead and email me. I would ask that we have to be very careful because couched within attorney bills or attorney-client privileged material, and so if you would like one, I'm happy to give it to you, but I would ask that it not be disseminated. Otherwise, I would need to redact it to ensure that that the work privilege is protected.
And it might make sense at some point, just put up some kind of secure area or secured binder or something along those lines. So if folks want to come look at it, for example, I envision coming and taking a look at the invoices and the work product on a fairly regular basis. So rather than trust email per se, it might make sense to put together some kind of secured area where we could take a look at it, to come to your office or a secured area, just pick one.
I'm right across the street, 8 to 5. You call me, you come over, Commissioner, and I'll sit down with you with copies of the bills, and we can go through them if you'd like. Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Call on Michael, our finance director, on this issue.
We do make sure before we pay any of those bills, me and Nick do talk both on the phone and through email to make sure that those are both reasonable. We also go based off the budget. So, for example, the budget amendment you see tonight, if for some reason it was to exceed that amount, I would not pay them. I would hold payment until we came back to this body to get more money. But that is how they are approved. They are sent to Nick. Nick was correct on that. And then we both check them for reasonableness to my extent from a budgetary standpoint. And then Nick, I obviously rely on Nick for the legal standpoint there. But we do have copies of those. Come to mine or Nick's office to review the invoices. If you would like, just let us know.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Christensen? If not, I'm going to go ahead and excuse him. He's got an appointment he's got to be to.
Thank you, Chairman.
But we also have the amendment. Michael, do you want to do this amendment?
So this amendment is a transfer in our solid waste fund budget. We're not requesting any funds out of fund balance. This is a transfer. As I stated the other night and earlier, I don't anticipate these bills being the dollar amount of this transfer. Right now, we have spent about $9,500. This is to cover, hopefully, the remainder of the year just in case, so I can go ahead and make sure we don't have any late payments. But this transfer is for $40,000.
If this amount is not spent, that can go right back to the general fund. So that's, this is just
it won't be the general fund. So if this amount is not spent, let's say that in 6 months from now, this outside attorney's work is over. I can transfer this money back into, another line item within the solid waste budget. Or if we don't transfer it back, it will roll into the solid waste fund balance. So this money is not going to be lost or go to waste or anything for any unspent funds.
Are there any questions further for Michael on this amendment? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer.
Mr. Irving.
Second.
And second, Commissioner Johnson. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Hervin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Guys, okay, next item we're going to look at is number 18, the Highway Fund Budget Amendment. Superintendent Brooks, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to get moved up on the agenda here. I do have a pressing appointment, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. What I'm bringing to you tonight is a budget amendment to buy some new equipment, dump trucks, and a oil and lube truck. These things were on our capital outlay plan at the Highway Department, and we decided to move a couple of those up a little bit because of the availability. So if we order them now, then hopefully we will have them by the time we really have to have them. So 4 dump trucks and 1 fuel truck. So we're moving from our ending fund balance, which is our 131, 34,750 account, and an amount of $1,300,000. And we're moving that into our highway equipment line item, which is 131, 68,714, an increase of $1,300,000. These will be replacing some 94, early to mid 90 trucks that we currently are using.
Okay, you've heard this discussion. Commissioner Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, this passed unanimously from the road board. Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this amendment? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr.
That's
Brooks.
all I have. Thank you.
Okay, that gets us back to the start of our agenda, which we normally have, is our investment report. We'll call on Mr. Beatty. Welcome, Ted.
Evening. I'll be brief as well. Interest rates have continued to rise, and so our return from our bank contract is 2.76% as the month closed out. We did not have the LGIP rate because that's not a fixed rate. I think I explained that. They actually pass to us, they charge us 4 basis points and then give to us the return of whatever their portfolio returns. So after the month ends, they have to calculate what all those returns are. And so as of 4:30, that was not available. However, most of our funds now are not in LGIP but are in other investments. And we have invested in some agencies at 3.4% on a year, and then we have a bond payment that comes due in 6 months, and so we were able to secure Treasury bills on that at 3.9%, so a sizably better return than what we were getting on the bank, and those will come due just as our debt service payment comes due in the spring.
Okay, you've heard the report. Are there any questions for?
LGIP stands for?
Local Government Investment Pool. That's a state, sorry, yeah, the lingo, that's a state investment pool in which the state has money invested and is relatively liquid. In fact, I think almost a third of that portfolio, which has county money and state money, Commissioner, is in overnight funds, but it is relatively short term. And again, they just, before interest rates got so low, it was a 5 basis point fee that they charged, and they dropped that to 4 basis points. So we're just a part of that portfolio, and they just pass on to us whatever that portfolio returns less that fee. And we can be in and out of that fund very easily.
Motion to approve is the report.
Second.
Mr. Johnson, recognized. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, sir. Y'all have a good evening.
All right, next up is the fund condition report, and we'll call on our finance director.
So I'll go over a couple things in this fund condition report. The first is going to be adequate facilities tax, development tax. As of today, or as of the end of September, we've collected $1,050,946.50. Just to point out, because I know we have a couple new commissioners on this committee, you will have to add in the adequate facilities tax and the development tax to come up with that number. As we've switched to adequate facilities tax, we are still collecting some development tax as that phases out. You'll see that on the top 2 line items there on your iPad on that report. The next thing I will cover is our cash balance report that you see. And as of September, we had $407,315,040.08 in cash. 89% of those were in operating funds, and 10% or 10.75% were in borrowed funds. And then there is a new report that on your iPad tonight, it's going to be the 4th page, I guess. It is titled Estimated Change in Fund Balance as of September 30th, 2022. And there's one thing I want to point out on this report, and that is, if you look at July 1, that's where we started the year with fund balance, and that's our percentage of appropriations or expenditures to fund balance. And then there's the September 30th, where we were at the end of the month. And if you'll notice, we have dropped almost 9% in County General's fund balance. I just wanted to point that out as we track that going forward. So as we pass budget amendment, that's going to continue to decrease. I do want to remind and tell the newer commissioners on this committee that our minimum fund balance policy is 15% in the general fund, and that in our general purpose school fund, it is 3%. However, I do want to impress the importance of, we need to have more than that based on cash flow, based on our payroll amounts. And, you know, if this commission would like, as far as our AAA bond rating, they really like us to have closer to 30 for that AAA bond rating. Any questions?
For the school or 30 for general?
I'm sorry?
For the school or 30 for general?
3% for the school. The school has to have a minimum of 3% fund balance, 30% for our general fund.
It's 15% for,
The minimum is 15%. The bond rating agencies would really like us to have closer to 30 as we try to maintain that AAA bond rating. But our fund balance policy does require a minimum of 15% for the general fund.
okay. Refresh my memory. We voted on this.
On the fund condition? No, we haven't.
So any questions on that?
Okay, so this is a new report, so I like it. So what it's saying is that, say, at the end of July, for example, County General had $53.2 million.
That beginning of July.
Beginning of July. And then the appropriations, are these estimates?
No, those are actual numbers. So, and I'll go through this. I'll go through the general fund just as an example and walk through this.
Okay, I'm just curious, August?
I'm sorry,
Is August?
No, in July 1, our actual, that's the original budget you approved, is the $140 million for the general fund.
Okay.
And I'm saying at the start of the year, you started with 37.83% of expenditures to fund balance. And then I'm saying as of the end of September, we have increased appropriations and decreased fund balance based on budget amendments that we have passed these 3 months. So now your percentage of fund balance is 29.3% for a reduction of 8.47% in fund balance.
And so that's the first quarter?
Yes.
Is this going to be given to us quarterly or monthly going forward?
I was really going to provide it monthly, but at minimum quarterly, yes.
Okay.
I just think it's very important to track that as we approve budget amendments throughout the year out of fund balance so that we know how much we're reducing fund balance.
Well, and if it's not inconvenient, I think monthly would be good.
Okay. Yes.
Unless it's too, Thank you.
Michael, does that conclude your report?
That concludes my report.
Any further questions for Michael on the fund condition report? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Johnson,
Second.
second. Sereno. Not spending anything, just a report there. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next is the Risk Management Financial Report. And Mr. Elam, I think, has got a daughter that's got him tied up this evening. I believe she decided to get married. But anyway, I want to invite his representative up for the risk management financial report. Would introduce yourself to our, especially for our new commissioners. So,
Hi, Jennifer Schmidt. I'm the benefits coordinator in the Insurance and Risk Management Office, and I'll be going over the 264 fund for August and September. For the new commissioners, the vast difference in the numbers between August and September. The schools pay their premiums across 10 months for the year, and July and August are the months that we do not take their deductions because they've already paid. So that's why there's a big difference between August and September.
Jennifer, you might want, you said 264, but we all know what it is, but they don't know it's the health care
Yes.
fund.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, this is for the health insurance fund. For the calendar year for August, revenue was $2,036,947, expenses $7,749,777, for a total of a negative $5,712,830. September, the revenue was $9,221,926. Expenses were $6,423,597 for a total of, or a difference of $2,007,908. That I completely messed up. $2,798,329. The calendar year total, the revenue is $63,163,964. Expenses $60,237,927, with the difference being $2,926,037. The fiscal year comparison, revenue so far for this year has been $13,212,085. Expenses $20,089,314, with the difference being a negative $6,877,229. And that is the conclusion of the report for the 264 fund.
My name is Susan Thompson. I'm the safety coordinator for Rutherford County. I work in the Insurance and Risk Management Department, and I will be reporting on the Fund 266 and the legal. The Fund 266 is workers' comp and OJI. We opted out of workers' comp in 2009 and adopted an on-job injury program, so we still have some old workers' comp claims that we're tracking on this report. I'm reporting on the months of August and September. So for August, the workers' comp was $1,345,055.70. For OJI, it was $65,147.61 for a total of $410,203.31. For the month of September, workers' comp was $1,097.26. For OJI, $56,969.88 for a total for September of $58,067.14, which brings our year-to-date total for workers' comp to $1,354,013.01, OJI $134,543.05 for a total of $1,488,556.06. I will point out for the month of August, we did have an old workers' comp claim that we had prepared for and anticipated and put $1.8 million in reserves for that claim. It came in at $1,781,000, and we were able to settle for $1,348,285. So saved about $442,000 on that, and that claim is now closed. So if you back that claim out of our year-to-date total, we're at $148,270.91, which is a little more consistent with the previous years. And that's it for Fund 266. On the legal, our total legal for this year to date, for the fiscal year, is $45,518.63 as compared to September last year of $73,565.09. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, this new to at least a couple of you there. Any questions on following? Ladies, both of y'all did an excellent job there. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, ladies. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead, please.
We have a recommendation from the Insurance Committee for a change to the employee benefits broker. Currently, it is one digital. We have done interviews and narrowed it down to Gallagher to go into effect in November if it continues through the commission.
And we do have, we saw this the other night in purchasing, and I know Chairman Phillips is on the Insurance Committee. If you'd like to make a comment, I usually let whoever represents us on the committee fall in. If you've got anything you'd like to say, Jeff, would appreciate it.
Only comment I would have is that's the longest insurance committee meeting I've ever attended. It appears that bringing both of those coverages under one company's umbrella would be easier and more convenient for the county, plus also saving the county some additional monies as well. We've had prior experience with
That's
But anyway, both of those, when you come up, are kind of under the same umbrella where we've had two companies dealing with either of those, and it would be easier not only for us but for the companies that are involved, and I think both of them would end up saving the county money overall. And we've had prior experience with the company as well, so it was unanimous at the insurance committee meeting. And I think at purchasing as well, if I'm not.
yes.
It's like an administration thing, administration change.
Third-party administrators, so they're not for safety side. There is a third-party administrator. For the benefits side, this is our broker, so they assist us with compliance, bids, various different things for our insurance plans, so they kind of help us with rate projections, things like that.
And your part fall under this too? Okay. If you want to go ahead, and we'll vote on these together.
So we also did the proposals for broker of record for property and casualty and the TPA services. We did have several that proposed, and it was narrowed down through a lot of analysis and interviews to Assured Partners and Collins & Company, Assured Partners being the broker of record and Collins & Company being the incumbent TPA. CCMSI bid for both the TPA and the broker of record, and that's what Commissioner Phillips was referencing there, of having it under one company, and it was unanimous by the Insurance Committee and the Purchasing Committee to forward on the recommendation of CCMSI for broker of record and TPA services for property and casualty.
Let me just add that the insurance committee meeting was quite lengthy, but the hours that risk management has put into evaluating firms and bringing recommendations to the insurance committee and then ultimately to this committee and the full commission is exemplary. You guys have did a really, really good job in doing that and taking a lot of work off of us. So good job in doing that. And once again, I can't tell you how much we appreciate the fact that you guys have done all of that homework and coming up with the best possible scenario for the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Phillips.
Okay, does that conclude y'all's part of the
Yes.
presentation? Okay. Now, what we'll actually be doing now is I'll entertain a motion to accept these proposals, which came from our insurance committee and through purchasing. I'll entertain a motion at this time. Not, certainly, these ladies are here to answer any questions you may have.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Johnson makes a motion to approve.
I second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno. Any other questions for these ladies or for any of us? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch? Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Ladies, thank you. Good job. Okay. Our next item is number 6, Emergency Management Performance Grant, American Rescue Plan Act Grant, and the related general fund budget amendments. Mr. Clark, welcome. Like I just saw
Chairman
you.
P, Mayor Carr, committee, new and seasoned commissioners. Emergency Management is requesting to budget amendment for Emergency Management Performance Grant, which is part of the American Rescue Plan Act, to appropriate $22,225 toward a fence in front of the Emergency Operations Center, which we feel that it has not been secured for years, and we need to do so. This is a 50-50 grant. Those grants are not predictable when they come in each year. The state would offer the same amount that will equal to $44,450. And as you can see on the budget amendment, we would end up putting in $499 once that came, and then the state would reimburse that.
Okay, welcome to the Budget Committee. This was voted on prior to you new guys being on the commission, and this grant was approved, and we didn't get the figures back till now. So, like I said, you'll get surprised occasionally, and this may be one that you weren't expecting. But this is something that the full commission had approved, so at any rate, sometimes there's bills come due that you end up paying. Having said that, I'll entertain a motion to take care of this change. Mr. Gooch,
Second.
and a second, Commissioner Irvin, thank you. Any other questions for Director Clark?
This would be to accept the grant. Our former commission approval was to apply for it. I think we got acceptance maybe the week after. It was a really quick turnaround on it. So.
Which we were not expecting, because
Yes.
most of the grants,
Yes.
it takes 6 months to get approved. It turned around really quick. This happened prior to the election and then also prior to the transition.
That's exactly right.
Okay, you got a motion and a second. Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch? Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
The second grant that we have requesting to apply for a hazardous material emergency preparedness grant. This would be used for some training, what we call hazmat suits, level A, which is fully encapsulated. B deals with primarily respiratory, that covers our skin during this during actual exercises and then during training as well. We also are requesting a hazmat simulator, which provides all hazard management response training, so we can release things that makes their monitors go off. We get some type of response out of the responders, seeing those things on their monitors, and provides a kind of a lifelike situation in a hazardous material environment for their training. Hopefully, all of that becomes muscle memory. This is a 80-20 grant. Our local match would require $6,149.41. The total of this project is $30,747.03. over the years, we've tried to capitalize on all the grants that we can possibly get through public safety. You see me up here a lot. And please forgive us, we don't know exactly when those grants are coming in. We just try to seek the opportunities to get them.
I usually will call on the committee representative to budget, which this year is Commissioner Sereno. If you've got any comments you'd like to make on this grant, I did sit on the meeting myself, so I'm aware that this passed unanimously out of public safety. Mr. Sereno, you want to add anything to that? Use your mic, please. Okay, so you're good. Are there any other questions for Director Clark? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Seems like a good return on the investment. Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Thank you. Any further questions?
Who was the second? I'm sorry. Commissioner Urban, okay. Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
Mr. Chairman,
Mayor.
privilege. As most of you know, I've had the privilege to work with a number of our directors who, after the last 30 days, are outstanding. From time to time, we have a director who is particularly outstanding, and I want to publicly recognize that Mr. Clark has been asked by the city of Laverne to be their marshal in the Laverne Christmas Parade. So congratulations, Mr. Clark, on such a prestigious honor.
Thank you.
So it's well-deserved, and Rutherford County congratulates you.
Thank you.
Are you going to be throwing out candy? The correct answer is yes.
Commissioner, my understanding, he has to dress as the Grinch, so we will see how that transpires.
Okay. Next up is, let's see, number 8, General Purpose School Fund Budget Amendment and Transfer. I've got a new face for me coming up, and I assume this is our budget.
The Chairman, as we're getting ready for this presentation, could I make a quick suggestion? As we're going through the budget, could we indicate whether or not this probably should go on a consent agenda or this should be presented? I'm just thinking like items 2, 3, 4, 5 are probably 2, 3, 4, especially our consent agenda items, but the other ones I'm uncertain about, and I'd just like feedback from the committee as to which ones probably should go on or not.
Well, that's a good idea. I appreciate you asking us, and we'll ask the committee as we go forward. You're Brian, is that correct?
Yes, good afternoon or good evening. My name is Brian Runyon. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Budget and Finance for the schools. I look forward to working with each and every one of you, and I've got a few budget amendments here to present. But Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a quick question because there's 4 different budget amendments, 2 in Fund 141, which is the General Purpose Fund, and 2 in 177, which is the Capital Projects Fund. Do you want me to present both at the same time and then entertain a motion, or how do you want me to approach that? Because I know in the past we've done it different ways.
Well, I'll tell you what, if it's okay with the committee, unless I hear an objection, we'll take them as one together. So present your first one, and then we'll continue to the second unless anybody wants to go ahead and vote on that. You know, any committee member that says, hey, let's stop here. Well, go ahead.
Okay, so the first budget amendment is for Fund 141, the General Purpose School budget, or school fund. The budget amendment funds 8 additional athletic trainers for the Rutherford County High and Middle Schools. Funding for these additional positions is derived from a recently approved 3-year agreement with Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance and additional state BEP funds allocated above the May 2022 BEP estimate that was used for the original revenue budget line for BEP for FY 22-23. Do you want a motion to go now, or do you want me to go to the next 141?
If it's okay with the
Could
committee.
you provide just a little bit of background for a new commissioner on the Budget Committee?
Sure.
In terms of kind of what fund this is coming out of? And
Well, in that case, let's go ahead and take these separate, and I agree with you.
Okay, so this fund is a general purpose school fund, so it's similar, I guess, to the county's general fund, except it's for the general purpose fund. So within the school, we have 3 main funds. There's a couple of building project funds that we have, but the main funds that most likely we will be presenting on whenever we present amendments will be the 141 general purpose school fund, and then the 143 fund, which is our centralized cafeteria fund for our cafeterias within the school, and then also 177 fund, which is our capital projects, or as y'all sometimes call it, the special projects fund.
these are out of 141.
Yes, these are for item 141, or for Fund 141.
Mr. Gooch, you're our representative on Health and Ed, aren't you? Any comment on this, or?
I think that it was a unanimous school board decision.
It was unanimous during the Health and Ed Commission.
And the funds are here. So I'll move that we approve the, recommended a motion to approve the GPS fund budget amendment of 547-190, both revenue and expenditures.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I hear a second? And a second, Commissioner Johnson. Any further questions for Mr. Bryan?
So these are these from our budget, or are they from an outside source, basically?
They're coming from, number one, our general purpose school fund budget, which, includes local, state, and local funds, BEP funds. So this is actually coming, a portion of this is being funded out of the BEP funding that we receive from the state, as well as other local revenues, which $250,000 of this was already approved in our original budget. They are giving us an additional, so the contract is for $600,000 per year that they're actually giving us in order for them to have the rights to be able to provide the medical services to, our athletes or whomever they're in service of.
Part of it's third party, part of it's BEP, and part of it's out of the general.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
But it's all part of the school's budget. It's not coming to our bottom line.
I understand.
Yeah.
I was trying to understand where it's coming from.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Okay, motion carries. Okay, please continue.
I will point out before I go any further that all of these were approved unanimously through the Health and Ed Committee. The amendment number 2 is still coming out of Fund 141, the General Purpose School Fund, and it reallocates $11,600 in current budgeted and certified and classified pay. The transfer of $11,600 from account 72,510,105 to 72,510,122 covers the additional amount of pay increase for our purchasing personnel. This amount was already approved in the supervisor salary line item of the fiscal service budget for the FY 22-23 school year. This is a budget neutral amendment and no new funds are being used.
Okay, you've heard his explanation there. Are there any questions? If not, I will enter.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion, Commissioner Irving.
Second.
Commissioner Sereno seconds. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, number 9, please continue.
Okay, so this budget amendment is for the Fund 177 budget, which is the capital projects budget. Each July 1st, outstanding purchase orders in this fund are liquidated. The funds go to the fund balance, which in this fund account is account 34685, committed for capital projects. These purchase orders are for projects that have not been finished by June 30th of the previous fiscal year. This amendment takes those funds out of 34685 committed for capital projects and rebudgets the expenditures for the carryover projects that were approved last year but have not yet been completed. This year we have $3,831,851.40 in funds to rebudget.
Okay, are there any questions? Mr. Irvin,
I just want to make sure I understand the process here. So, and I have, in fairness, I've had a good discussion with Director Smith about some of this in advance. But I want to make sure where this was appropriated, and then at the close of the fiscal year, it was put back.
Yes,
and
so
then
what happened?
Then now we're just reappropriating money.
Correct.
Is it the same money, or is it?
Same money. So what it did is it flowed in, after June 30th, it flows back into fund balance in the 177 projects. So it's money that was actually appropriated in FY 21-22, and then the projects were not completed, so we did not expense the money, the POs, the purchase orders that were liquidated, and then that money, it basically frees that money back up, and then that flows, when we close out in June 30th, that money flows back into the fund balance of the capital projects fund.
And what were the projects generally?
There's a whole list. And that's what I'm going to actually, in the next couple of months, we'll be doing amendments of where we're going to reallocate money between different projects. And at that point in time, if you want a copy of what our capital projects include, we can provide you a copy of those and what amounts, have been spent out of there, what amounts, are new projects, and actually what the carryover projects are. But I would be standing up here for a little while if you wanted me to sit there and tell you what the carryover projects were.
And that's fair, and I don't want to belabor points, but I do think at some point we need to get a little bit into the weeds to understand.
Yeah. And
it's kind of an accounting thing that I'm not crystal clear on. Talked with Director Smith a bit on, but.
Yeah, I'll be glad to provide you with the actual capital project fund, all the projects that flow through there. And again, like I said, we will be presenting amendments on there that will show everything that's in that fund, what projects were carryover and what projects were new projects for the FY 22-23. I'll be glad to share that with you.
And I appreciate it. And one of the reasons I'm trying to focus on this very briefly is I see a $3 million number pop up.
Yeah.
And that could be a net of a whole bunch of small numbers, all of which are perfectly appropriate. I have no idea. But I understand now. Thank you.
The project adding these buildings or adding school classroom?
Most of these are like roofs, HVAC, repair work, that kind of thing, capital projects that are maintenance. Michael?
Let me point out a distinction here. This is Fund 177, Educational Capital Projects. These are for more maintenance projects. So this is going to be like a new HVAC unit. This is going to be a new upgraded playground. And then you're going to see the second part to his amendment here is replacing some bleachers, some things like that. So this is where a portion of property tax goes in to maintain the school buildings, not for additions. One of the funds Mr. Runyon referenced was called the Special Projects Fund. That fund is actually Fund 189, and that is where new construction is accounted for. So any additions, any brand new schools like the Plainview Elementary is in that fund, not in this fund. The reason this fund is here is because it's budgeted on the tax, it's on the tax roll and has reoccurring revenue, which requires it to be budgeted. The Fund 189 is not budgeted, so that's why you do not see it on the fund condition report and things I presented to you earlier tonight.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? We'll go ahead and vote on this one.
We don't have a motion.
I'm sorry, I thought we did.
And he has another item.
Well, I'll ask the committee, do y'all want to go ahead to this second item, or do you want to vote on this one?
Let's just vote.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve.
Second.
In a second, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Irvin wants the motion. Are there any other questions about this Fund 177 capital projects budget? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Srinion?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, please continue, Brian.
Okay, so the second amendment is still coming out of the Fund 177 capital projects budget. This amendment budgets $296,560 from committed for capital projects fund balance to 2 unexpected repair and replacement items. $46,560 is for repair to the Rockville High sewer line, and $250,000 is to replace the visitor side bleachers at Blackman High. In addition, $102,000 will be amended internally from the Smyrna Middle School fence project to cover the replacement of the pre-K playground at Laverne Lake Elementary, and $95,000 will be amended internally from Oakland Pool HVAC project to the Oakland Pool deck and wall projects.
Kind of see a list this time, Commissioner Irving, and that's normally what you would see.
I'm sorry, I was focused on something else.
Well, I was just saying, that's what you'll normally see. You'll see those lists, and like I said, we'll make those available to anybody that needs to see them. Are there any questions about these particular projects? If not, I've got one. The visitors' bleachers at Blackman, what is going on with that? Those are, I've seen the bleachers, and I have sat in Blackman's visitors' bleachers, but those are all pretty substantial. What's the problem with these?
Well, I'm going to read an email directly from Trey Lee, who is our Assistant Superintendent of Engineering Construction, basically because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't misquoting on what actually this was going to be used for. If I can find it. I think it's here. Okay. He said the Blackman High bleachers are now broken and parts are no longer available. They are unsafe to use and they need to be replaced. This one side, the visitor side only, they were not damaged last year when we had our yearly bleacher inspection. Blackman High has a larger number of issues than most schools when newly built. So from my understanding and what he presented to the board a month or two ago, is basically the way these bleachers work, they've got to be pulled out a certain way and pushed in a certain way. And whenever that was being done, it wasn't done correctly, and it ended up breaking them off their tracks, and those parts cannot be replaced because they're not available. So we're just replacing the whole visitor side of bleachers at Blackman High.
Are these inside bleachers?
Yes, they're in the gym.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So basically what it comes down to is there's no visitor side bleachers for, visiting teams to, or their fans or whatever to sit at. And this was done basically during times whenever the teachers or whomever would bring kids in there for certain classes or whatever it may have been. They just weren't. So basically the way I understand the way it is those bleachers were pulled out halfway and then pushed back in, and instead of being pulled out all the way and pushed back in like an accordion type way, they had to go in like that. From my understanding, I do not claim to know bleachers, but that's what was explained during our board meeting in the way those work. And now there's no parts that are available to fix it, so the whole set of bleachers has to be replaced.
I'm glad you clarified that. I was thinking it was football.
Yeah, I was thinking these outside football bleachers.
It's actually in the Blackman High Gym, Nasium, so, yep.
Nobody wants to do some advertising and put a big sign up.
And again, like I said, we're pulling that out of the fund balance that we're, pulling that $3.8 million up into those lines. So that's what's covering this.
This has already been appropriated also?
Yes, it's already been appropriated, yes.
It hasn't been appropriated, but you would be appropriating it now with this amendment. The other $3 million had been appropriated in prior years, and you're reappropriating that. This would be a new appropriation within that fund.
So this is coming out of this year's budget?
Well, it's coming out of the fund balance, yes. It would be new. It's not a continuing project. Correct.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Please.
Are the new bleachers going to be the same accordion type?
I can't answer that. That would be a question for Trey because I'm not sure, and he is actually out of town this week, so that's the reason why he's not here. But I'm not. I don't even dare to venture there and try to figure out what the bleachers are that they're looking at. So.
And I'm sure you may not know the answer to this question, but what my question would be: what has been put in place to keep this from happening again? And again, if you don't know?
Honestly, I don't know, but if I had to guess, it would probably be just making sure whoever is using those bleachers know the proper process and the way to pull them out and push them back in, because that's basically, from what my understanding was, is the reason why they broke and they came off their tracks, is what I understand, because of that process of the way they were being pulled out and pushed back in.
If you could get that information before the commission meeting, or let them know that we're inquiring. If not, if there's not enough time, then maybe before the next Health and Ed meeting. Okay. I just want to make sure that there's a process in place officially that's going to keep this
and I'm hoping
again at Blackman or any other school.
I'm hoping I can bring Trey over with me so he can address that at the full commission meeting. So
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Piercy.
Is there not any type of insurance the school could carry on property like that to help pay for that when it's damaged or broken? Like a homeowner's policy or anything?
So generally, right now, the schools follow under our property and casualty. So generally, it would not be cost advantageous to cover like a homeowner's insurance policy. Now, the new school will have a 1-year builder's warranty, usually, with some equipment warranty on specific items such as HVAC and bleachers, for example. However, I think these bleachers are probably original to the school, so that warranty would have expired. But I will say, out of 50 schools, if we were to carry that on every school, it would be millions a year, probably just in the insurance policy range to cover maintenance items.
Mayor Carr.
As a cautionary note going forward, would it be appropriate to have training on how to pull bleachers in and out so we don't repeat this mistake?
I believe it would, but, again, like I said, that probably would be have to be something that came from, director of schools or Trey, just in how that
$250,000 mistake.
Yeah.
Seems like maybe we could have avoided some of this with a little bit of training based on your description of what happened. Thank you.
I agree with you.
And I guess this, if this is the original bleachers, they must be old, so this may have been going over a process of time, or just
I don't think it just happened over one series of them pushing it in and out. I think it's just because over time, a period of time, they weren't being, pushed in or out correctly. So, and it ended up running the tracks that they, go in and out on. So,
is there a motion on the floor, Mr. Chairman?
There is not on this.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the budget amendment.
Okay, I'll entertain a second, and then I'll address.
What year was the Blackman High School built?
That's a good question.
Before we go into discussion, I need a second on this motion. Do I hear a second? Okay, I have a second. Commissioner Johnson, go ahead, Commissioner Sereno.
I already asked him
I
what year
can't give you that. I don't know the exact date on it. I know it's probably been there 5 years or less, somewhere around there. But it may be somewhere in that vicinity, but I know it hasn't. It's one of our newer schools, so.
Mr. Chairman, I would just ask or echo the thought that if this could be done a bit more cost efficiently, the repair, so that this didn't happen again, basically.
Well, one comment I want to make is I would tell Chairman Phillips we definitely do not want this one on the consent agenda with as much questions that we've got right here. And of course, Commissioner Gooch has also stated that we need some answers when it comes to the full commission if this passes here.
If I remember correctly, Blackman High School was built in 98, 99, 2000.
Yeah, shortly after you and I came on the three of us came on the commission, it was built that first 4 years. So it's in the neighborhood of 20 plus years, right at that.
May I ask, is this covering the 46,560 for the sewer line also?
Yes.
And there's no insurance or anything along those lines for?
No, not.
Nobody dug it up or anything?
Nobody dug it up. What it is, and again, I hate to speak to this because I am not sure with this construction, but basically what it is because that sewer line is so deep, there's only specific construction companies that can do it, can do the repair to the actual line. So we had to go with the specific construction company that it was, and that was going to be the price of it. But I am not sure that there was any insurance that would been on this at all. So
we do have a motion and a second on this. One thing I do want to point out is, you do not have to agree to these. If there's questions that you've got, you could amend it and pull one or all out of that motion if you wanted to make an amendment. Just let you know your options here. If you've got specific questions or worried about something, now would be the time to bring that up. Or we can bring it up at the full commission too, and possibly I would personally ask Mr. Lee to be here to answer specific questions on these items if they go ahead and pass tonight. Mr. Irvin.
I just wanted to ask also, is the 102,000 and the 95,000 included in this motion, or is this motion only for the 46,560 for this?
They're all on this motion. They're all on there. The 46,560, the 250,000 for the bleachers, the 102 for the fence, 95,000 for the Oakland pool, and I think, yeah.
Could we have a little more explanation, and I'm not sure exactly procedurally, but could we have a little more explanation on the first and second transfers? The 102 and the 95?
So those are internally, and what that is more of an information where they're moving it between projects internally. That is not coming out of the committed fund balance. That is more of an FYI of what they're doing internally with projects. So for example, let's say they had another bleacher project that they saved money on. I'm not saying they do, but as an example, maybe that they had another 250 bleacher project and they saved 102 on that. They're moving that savings from another project into another one. So that's why you don't see that entire amount coming out of the committed for capital projects.
Part of that has to do too with shared revenues with the cities and where these funds come from, where they go to.
Well, on this one is not necessarily, this fund is on the tax rate here, so this is not the shared local revenues that are in the general purpose school fund. However, you can't move these funds out of here. So, if you did not like this project for bleachers or whatever, you can't move these funds out into the general fund out of this committed for educational capital projects here. That would not be an option. You could deny the motion and leave it in capital project as an option. But you can't move it out and say if you didn't like this project and move it into our general fund.
Sounds like they're giving us a heads up. Is that a fair assessment?
The moving between projects is a FYI from the board telling us, because that money that 102 has already been appropriated. So has the 95.
That's something we also do. If you notice the fund condition report that he showed us, if you look across there, you'll see funds that are left over from certain projects. We can move those funds depending, again, upon whether they have to be shared or not, where they can go into. But say we estimated, I'm trying to think of one we just saw on purchasing, some trucks that we'll be looking at here in a little bit, and they actually came under budget for what we actually budgeted, about 20,000. So that 20,000 is available, just where it's available at. But same thing here, same concept.
And really what you're voting on is the 250 and the 46,000, or 46,560 makes up the 296 out of fund balance. That's really what you're appropriating tonight is the 296,560. The 102 and the 95 has already been appropriated to other projects, and they're choosing to move those from a previous project to a new project.
Thank you.
By the way, I want to thank you for asking the questions, because people at home watching this, they'll say, well, what the heck are they doing here? And I appreciate you, we want to be clear about what's going on.
I've been getting a bunch of texts already. It's like...
Okay, are there any other questions? And we do have a motion and a second on this. The only comment I want to make is next time you have these kind of projects, have Mr. Lee come to be able to do the explanation if possible. If not, another representative.
Sure.
Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Abstain.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner P, I might just add to help Chairman Phillips out on any budget amendments that we have coming out of fund balance, we always recommend those to be on the committee agenda and not on the consent agenda, and when we make our recommendations to the agenda.
Okay. Our next item is 10, the Summit Food Service LLC Agreement Amendment. And I'm not sure who's going to do that. Michael?
So we had a meeting a few months ago, back in August, we have a contract with Summit Foods to provide food at our county jail and at our county workhouse. And per that contract, if food costs go up a certain percentage, then our cost in this contract go up. We do not have a budget amendment to go with this tonight. This item is more an FYI to keep this committee in the loop. These costs have went up, and they anticipate staying up the next few months as inflation has risen. We are monitoring that. If a potential budget amendment may be needed down the road, we will bring that. But we wanted to bring this to the committee's attention tonight to let you know that they did modify the pricing in this contract. The county attorney has looked at this to verify that it met the legal threshold to do so, and he signed off and agreed. So this was really an information item for the committee tonight.
Part of the reason for no specific numbers is we don't really know how many prisoners we're going to be feeding for the next several months or during this time period. But as it gets closer to the end of the year, we definitely will be finding out. Are there any questions for Michael about this? If not, we'll go ahead to our next item since that's for information
I think
only.
we would need a motion on that because we would need to authorize the mayor to sign this agreement or this amendment.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. I will entertain a motion as we are going to upgrade this contract.
I so move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Sereno. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Motion. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes?
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Item 11, we didn't get the information that we needed on time from the state, so we're going to skip that and look at it next month. We'll move on to item 12, reclassification of sheriff's office position and related general fund budget transfer. Item 12. Welcome, Mr. Spence, Deputy.
Good evening. Our quartermaster at the sheriff's office is actually at the rank of corporal, and his responsibilities have increased over several months. He handles the uniforms, equipment, firearms instructor. He's a licensed armor. He works on all of our weapons, and he also does inventories of our radios. We're asking to reclassify his position to a sergeant, asking to take $10,126 from our salaries and wages and put it into the sergeant's line items.
You've heard the request. Are there any comments or questions for Deputy Chief? Have a motion, Commissioner Piercy, and a second. I do want to make a quick comment, and we've actually got one more of these coming up, not with the Sheriff Department, but one thing that we want to ask our departments whenever they do a promotion that will cost more money, we'd like to get those before the budget's completed, especially this early in the year. And I've actually had a conversation with our chief here.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, he understands that. This was something that they felt like they needed to do. They have money in their budget to cover this. However, it's hard on us to budget when we come back and we see promotions and things that are outside of what we budgeted. So we respectfully ask that people try to keep that within their budget season. Any other comments from the committee? Hearing none, we've got a motion and a second. Please call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Our next amendment, we're requesting to funds from our restricted drug fund from public safety, $37,500, and placing $20,000 in our vehicle repair maintenance, $2,500 in other charges, and $15,000 in our data processing line item. And this is all drug fund money.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I have a motion, and did I hear a second?
I just asked for an explanation of
Let me
drug
get-
fund
let me
money.
get
I'm
a
trying to
second
make sure
first.
Commissioner Piercy?
Okay, we've got a second. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask about drug fund money with that term. essentially.
It's narcotics money, it's seized, the money they seized from drug arrests, fines from the drug arrest from the courts goes in this line item, and then we put them into their operation line items.
This is part of the confidential funds, in which case we can't really get involved in. That's why I brought that up.
State law stipulates that this is, as long as this is used to fight, I don't want to say drug crime because that sounds simple, but really that's what it's for, is at the sheriff's discretion, and, you know, they bring this budget amendment, but that, it's restricted for those purposes only. So they can't, you know, use this to go over there and upgrade something at the jail unless it's related to drugs infiltrating the jail or something. They couldn't, you know, do something else with it, but it has to be drug related or fighting drug crime.
Yes, and that's correct.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch? Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay.
Thank you.
And then we have item 14, if I'm not mistaken. General fund budget amendment for police traffic services grant. Michael, you going to do that one or the? Okay.
And then he'll be here for questions if there. So this is a grant we received. This grant has no match. This grant recognizes the revenue and expenses for the Tennessee Highway Safety Office Community-Based Police Traffic Safety Enforcement and Education Program grant. That's a mouthful to say. But this grant requires no match, so that's the best kind of money to us. And this grant is for a period from October of this year until September of 2023. The amount of this grant is $100,000.
Do I hear a motion to accept this $100,000 grant? Piercy, motion to accept. Second, Commissioner Johnson.
I'll make note this is not accepting the grant. That was already been authorized back in April, I believe, in the resolution that the mayor could sign for it since it's a no-match grant. This is just to budget the money to get it in the budget since it's a new grant coming in. So you're just doing the budget amendment for it only.
Thank you for that clarification.
This one and the next one also, they're both the same way.
Okay, you heard the explanation. Any other questions? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, number 15, general, go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry. The next one is our teen safety grant. This agreement also recognizes the budget, the revenue and expenditures for this grant that was already approved. This is for FY23, the Teen Driver Safety Grant Program. It'll be utilized for SR overtime for team events and related benefits. This grant does run through October and through September of 2023. This grant requires no match and is for $12,000.
Motion to approve.
Motion, Commissioner
Second.
Johnson, second, Commissioner Irving. Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, next item is 16, general fund budget amendments for reappraisal. Well,
Michael, Mark, Commissioners, which one will be appearing first on their agenda, Mark? Do you know?
The one that has the licenses and lease payments.
Okay.
7,071.
All righty. What my request is a transfer from the general fund unassigned balance of $7,000 to cover additional licenses. This is money that we had as a refund from the U.S. Postal Service. It was money that we weren't going to be needing for postage because we outsourced a good portion of our mailings. So that was money that was sitting there, so we decided to move it back. It has to go into the general fund balance and then be transferred back into our office, and we intend to use it for licensing for software. Do we go on to the next one, or do we wait on that one since these are all on one sheet? I'm not sure. I don't do these very often.
I'll leave that up to the committee. Would you like to discuss this more or go to the?
This includes also the $7,071 for the vehicle that you purchased. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not just the license.
The other one is $7,071 for a vehicle lease. We had a car that was totaled out by another party at an intersection, and the insurance money came back to the county, went into the general fund. We also had another vehicle that was surplused out, and I'm sorry, I don't know the amount on that one, Mark, because it was determined by the garage that it was too expensive to repair and it should be surplused. So we'd like to take the proceeds from those two vehicles that were used, abused, and discarded, and use those to cover the cost of a lease of a new vehicle to replace the two that were removed from service.
Okay.
Just to clarify, Mr. Chairman, so the car that was damaged was one that we owned, and then we're going to the fleet service for rental or lease? Okay. Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. And just to make this clear, you had 7,000 that's coming back from postal services.
Yes, sir.
That you're going to use, which actually went to undesignated fund balance, and you're asking for that back.
Right.
And the same thing, the 7,071, which went to fund balance, and you're asking for that back.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, okay, that's enough. Any other questions from the committee?
I just need to, was that Commissioner Irvin on the second?
I believe it was.
Sure, I'll be glad to.
Okay.
I did, I believe, so yes.
I believe you did.
I just hadn't gotten used to your voice yet, so I'm trying to remember.
No worries.
Get the name. Get the voice.
Okay, go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Gooch? Yes. Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. The second amendment is for, and it'll be modified here. I did some more recalculation, and it's instead of a request of $15,618, the request is for $13,531 from unassigned fund balance. And what this is, we have a contract with Eagle View, which carries out and does the aerial imagery for us. Countywide, it was a contract that was approved and signed last year. When we were going to budget, we did not have the total amount back yet on what the cost would be on this. It came in slightly higher than what we had budgeted for. So this is a 10-year contract that will be no changes in the contract, but we were a little light. It was we were $13,000 shy on our estimation on what it would come back at. So this is just a request to make sure that we have the funds to cover the contract that we've already got in place.
Mr.
13,
Chairman.
I'm seeing 15,618. What's the correct number?
$13,531.
Mr. Chairman, is it $13,531 a year or for total
It's an additional $13,531 for this current year's contract. And so that would be included in the contract every year, which is $161,000 a year.
Okay, thank you.
There's no change in this contract with this amount. This is what you had asked for originally.
Right.
Just the price was solved.
Right, just the price was a little off. When we were going through the budget process in March, they didn't have the numbers back for us yet, and it just came in after.
Any questions? Entertain a motion here.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Mr. Johnson, motion, and Commissioner Sereno. Any further questions? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Hope y'all have a great evening.
Thank you, Rob. All right, number 17, reclassification of the correctional work center position. Welcome, Superintendent Cope.
Chairman, Commissioners, I'd like to first start by saying that I rarely ever come in front of this committee, and it's because of the employee I'm about to ask you about as far as reclassification. So I'd like to request to reclassify position 1701 from admin support 2 to admin supervisor 1, and that would be a decrease in overtime pay, $4,920, to increase into that line item of secretary. Like I said, it's very rare that I come in front of this board, and that's because of that employee. And she has taken on so much more over the past few years, and typically I wouldn't come up and ask for reclassification in this time of middle of the year, but recently she's been asked and recruited by some other employers. And I'll be honest with you, just like I told my board and I told the mayor, it's not that I want to keep her, it's I absolutely need to keep her. And she's the reason that we, just to get personal, she's the reason that we return no less than $100,000 every year. And she has taken on a lot more over the past few years, especially with us taking on that litter grant that we have, and a little bit of everything else. So I would like to ask that for your approval of reclassification. Not to mention that every day that I was at the work center during the pandemic, she was there. She never spent one day at home. She never took a day off, and she didn't ever work from home. She's there every day, and she's a hard worker, and she's been a dedicated employee of this county for well over 20 years.
You've heard the request.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions for?
Just a quick question, Mr. Chair. Okay, this is a little bit confusing. So the total cost is $6,900, and transferring $4,900. Does that take care of?
It will. That's probably a better question for Mark, I imagine.
That's the 6,900 is the annual cost. So the 4920 would, or the 4910 salary would be the remainder of this fiscal year.
Gotcha.
Any further questions or discussion? Chairman Phillips, and then
She has been here for about over 20 years, you said?
Yes, so she came to us about 10 years ago or so.
It's very, very active.
Yeah.
Chairman Phillips.
It's been talked about, this has been discussed and talked with our HR director.
It has with our HR director. It's passed unanimously through our board. It's passed unanimously through public safety also.
And HR signed off on it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Superintendent. Okay, our next item is 18, and we've already covered that one.
Yes, sir.
So, number 19, General Fund Amendment, Budget Amendment and Agreement with the Tennessee Treasury Department for the I-24 Epps Mill, Buchanan Road Improvement Projects. And I'm going to let Michael discuss this one for us.
So back in, I think it was August, we were presented with a proposal from TDOT, from the Tennessee Department of Transportation, to partner with them on a project of widening Epps Mill Road and at the I-24 interchange. There's a project there. We were going to take a cost of widening the portion of Epps Mill Road because that was a county road. They were going to handle the greater share of this project. So the commission did vote to approve for us to move forward with that project, approve that agreement. This agreement now appropriates the initial startup and design funds and approves the agreement for an LGIP account that the state can draw funds out of as we put them in as needed. So this is the initial request from the state of $325,000 out of a total of about $6 million project that would be the county share. The $6 million part would be the county share. But this is the initial seed money to get that project going. I believe this was a 4 to 6 year project in total, as depending on how fast they can get it moving. So one of the things I do want to point out is we do have leftover development tax money that has to be spent on capital projects that was restricted in the general fund. So we proposed a budget amendment taking it out of those funds instead of unassigned fund balance.
Is all of it being taken out of that?
No, so
million?
just right now, this is the $325,000 that the state has requested. We would still have to determine where to take out the remainder of the money. Whether there's several options, whether this commission would like to take that out of fund balance. However, this project would be over multiple years, so you have several options as far as going into next year's budget that you could do some options there. But this is for the initial startup cost or design cost, or our portion of the startup design costs.
Commissioner Phillips, Chairman Phillips.
Just a quick comment on this. Being a member of Planning Commission for so many years, Epps Mill and that Buchanan area has been one of the most congested in the county. And these are the type of projects that we absolutely positively must participate in as we go forward to improve our infrastructure out through the county. You're talking about a $45 million expenditure, and our portion of it would be $6 million to get that interchange updated and Epps Mill Road improved, and it's a long time in coming, and this is money well spent.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Johnson.
If my memory serves me right, I believe this is about a 5-year project somewhere along the way. Okay,
yes.
So I have no problem with it. Motion to approve this.
Okay, I have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? I'll kind of kick in there too. I think that our finance director has hit on a good source of income, at least for this initial amount. We do have options on what we can do in the future, and we'll discuss those, but we don't have to look at that now, but we will be looking at that in next year's budget. So, any other questions? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries. Okay. Item 20, we've already discussed. Item 21, contract with the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Evaluations and Treatments. And I'll make a quick statement, and we'll turn this over to Michael. This is something we have reoccurring with our judges who set the time that is allowed for a defendant to have mental evaluations. The state used to pay all this. Jeff, I see you smiling. You remember this happening to us. when the state changed it, that we pick it up, they had limited the amount of time that these people would have being evaluated. However, when it became a county job, they didn't limit it. And we had some astronomical cost occur from this. And this agreement is kind of taking care of that problem for us. And Michael, if you would.
I do believe this is the same amount we've been paying for the last 4 or 5 years. I'll defer to Mark, but I don't think this has increased in 4 or 5 years.
Correct.
So this is the same agreement we're under now. This would continue it going forward. This is something we really have to do. Like Chairman P said, once a general sessions judge, orders this treatment for a charge that's a misdemeanor, we have to pay it. So I do feel good that these charges have not increased over the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay, you've heard the explanation. Do I hear a motion? By the way, this is something we do have to approve. It's kind of that bill's there, we've got to pay it.
I can say we don't have to approve it, but we're getting the negotiated cost that the state has already negotiated for it. If you look in the almost at the bottom of the first page, it'll be between $860 and $1,100 per trip, as opposed to about $400, I think, is what's on.
It's $450 for our cost.
Yeah, the state negotiated cost. So it's just, we're able to take advantage of just say a state bid, really, is what we're doing.
Well, my point was, regardless of whatever that cost ends up.
Oh, you got to pay the bill.
We got to pay for it.
One way or the other, you got to pay the bill. That's true.
And this to our advantage to go this route.
Motion to pay the bill.
I have a motion.
Second.
Here, second.
Second motion.
Mr. Irvin seconds. Okay. Any other discussion on this bill? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes, motion carries. Item 22, annual report of fixed assets. And we're going to call on Michael for that.
So this report is prepared by Denise in our office. She does a great job. She will track you down, even myself. If I do not find something that she's looking for, she will track me down. But I will point you out to on page 5 and page 6. Those schedules will be in our audit report that will be released by the end of the year. Those are large totals. I will point out those are both for the county and the school system. So that's why you're going to see some pretty large totals there in assets. I will also point out our inventory results are very good. We do go back through for a second cycle if we can't find something on the first count, and we note any missing assets. And so as you can see, there is no missing assets that we found during our test work. So that is really good news. And then on the back, the last few pages are our fixed asset policy and procedures, just for your reference. And then that concludes my report on that.
Are there any questions for Michael on the missing assets, fixed assets? Do we need a motion to approve this report?
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
FYI. All right.
No, it's just a FYI.
All right, we're going to move on to item 23, budget, general fund budget amendment for volunteer fire department contributions. I don't see anybody here. Michael, you want to cover this one?
I'll cover that one. So I'm going to give a little backstory on this. This did pass public safety the other night unanimously, or I think it was an FYI at public safety. So in the past, there was a fire chiefs association back for all of the volunteer fire departments. And over the years, we have developed the Rutherford County Fire Department, and we still have a few remaining, I think 3, maybe 4 volunteer fire departments. I know for sure 3. 4, is it 4?
There's
4 volunteer fire departments. And since that time, as we've opened our own fire departments at the county level, this Fire Chiefs Association has ceased to exist. And they had remaining in their bank account $3,089. And so they have written that check over to the county with intent to distribute those funds to the remaining volunteer fire departments that are in operation today, which is really where those funds originated. So this budget amendment would allow us to accept that money and then appropriate that back out to those remaining volunteer fire departments. And we will distribute that equally amongst those 4.
Okay, you've heard the explanation there. Do I hear a motion to distribute these funds back to the volunteers?
So
Motion
moved.
to approve it.
Okay, I have a motion, Piercy, and a second, Johnson. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch? Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, item 24, we've already taken care of, or rather, we won't be looking at, yes, we've already taken care of that one earlier. Item 25, general fund budget amendment for solid waste transfer station design and engineering.
So this budget amendment stems from the other night at Public Works. The Public Works, I think, passed unanimously in favor of starting a potential design phase of a transfer station. To depend, that design phase should consist of, you know, can that transfer station go there? What do we want it to look like? You know, do we want all the bells and whistles? Do we not? So that's what this initial seed money would be for. Not to exceed $200,000 was approved by the Public Works Committee. So that's what this budget amendment covers. And it is coming out of a committed for public health and welfare line item. That was committed by the previous commission. There was $5 million set aside to cover something like this or to potentially cover trucking solid waste. So we are utilizing $200,000 out of that $5 million that was already set aside for a project like this.
Motion to approve.
I have a
Second.
motion and a second. Okay, we had quite a lengthy discussion on this the other night at Public Works. I think many of y'all were there or watched it. Is there any other discussion or questions? Or Mayor, do you have a comment you'd like to make?
No, sir, only here to answer questions and glad to do so.
Chairman Phillips.
This one quick comment. For 4 years, this Public Works Committee has been working extra hours to, in essence, develop a Plan B, and this commission did it in 1 month, and it's really to be commended for that. This is the beginning of our Plan B. We looked at recycling center back in the summer, but this transfer station, once again, is the start of our path forward and handling our own garbage into the future. So it's a move that's probably a long time in coming.
And Chairman Phillips' remarks are 100% accurate.
Mr. Chairman, so I'm so delighted to see this coming, you know, because I have served on the public work for several years. So thank you for your effort.
Well, you're welcome, but it was the effort of Public Works and the mayor's office. It was everybody coming together to avoid a crisis, and this opens up an opportunity for us to deal responsibly, environmentally, with our waste stream, yet at the same time avoid what could be a serious crisis. So no time like the present.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to commend the efforts of the Public Works Committee as well.
On behalf of them, I'm going to say you're welcome and thank you.
And the mayor.
I know Commissioner Piercy and myself, Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Reno, of course, our current mayor, we put a lot of time in this. It's good to see things happening here. So you've heard the comments. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion about this appropriation to fund engineering for a transfer station?
I would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge our previous solid waste director, Mac Nolan, consultant Becky Phillips, and of course Bishop Wagner. There was a lot of people that played a role in this, and when you mentioned Commissioners Piercy and others, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, we'll call roll if we have.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy? Piercy? Easy for me to say. Commissioner Piercy? Did you vote? Sorry. Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay. We've got one item left here, general fund budget amendment for state direct appropriation grant for the landfill. And I assume you're going to catch that, Michael?
Yes, so this budget amendment is needed after the previous commission, I think it was back in August, they approved a subrecipient agreement with the Regional Solid Waste Planning Board. This was a direct appropriation grant from the state of Tennessee for $2.5 million. As part of that subrecipient agreement, it allowed the Regional Solid Waste Planning Board to spend $1.25 million of that this fiscal year and $1.25 million of that next fiscal year. So this budget amendment reflects that agreement that was signed back in August.
Guys that have been around a while do remember this. Do any of you have any questions about this grant?
Well, I just wanted, thank you, Mr. Chairman, to ask some just real basic background type questions. Could you give us a little background on where the money came from, what it's to be used for? I understand there's some pilot program or something. So just some background.
So this past legislative session, the legislature approved a direct appropriation grant of $2.5 million to come to Rutherford County to the Regional Solid Waste Planning Board. In doing that, we developed a subrecipient agreement with the Solid Waste Planning Board that outlines specific items that they could spend the money on. It is very broad on what they can spend the money on. So I think they want to develop a pilot program from what they've told us, from what the Regional Solid Waste Planning Board has said. So within that subrecipient agreement, it does state what they can spend the categories on. So for instance, they cannot hire any personnel unless they come back to this body, to the commission, to ask permission to modify their agreement. It lays out that they can spend the money on contracted services and supplies and materials. This money does not run out. So for example, if they were not to spend that money this year, they would have to come back and ask for permission or revise the agreement to spend it further. But that's how it originated straight from the state legislature.
This is similar to some other grants that are pilot, you might call them pilots. For instance, our drug courts, there were no drug courts in this state until they started them here in Rutherford County, if I'm not mistaken. And it was kind of a pilot program, and Rutherford County has kind of picked it up and ran with it, and it's kind of been a model for the rest of the state. And I think our legislation is looking for the same type results by putting this money out here, trying to help us come up with solutions and some money to get there. That's my take on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
They do have to submit, I believe, I don't have the agreement in front of me, but I believe it's quarterly reports back to this body and back to the finance office. I believe it's quarterly. Do you recall, Mark, if it was quarterly? I do know there was a stipulation there that they had to submit reports back, but I don't remember if it was quarterly or every 6 months.
I don't remember, no.
But there is a stipulation in there for that. There's also a stipulation in that agreement, you know, that we can audit those records for payments to make sure they're allowable expenditures and things like that.
Thank you.
Okay, you've heard the discussion. Any other comments? And I do believe we have a motion and a second on this.
We need a motion. We need a motion.
We do need a motion.
I so move to approve the.
Mr. Sereno.
Second.
Commissioner Irving, second. Any other discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Motion carries. There being no other business from committee, Commissioner Phillips.
One quick follow-up, Mark. Looking at the list, how many of these items will go before the full commission, and how many of them will go before the full commission, and the rest go on the?
I mean, just looking at it, I couldn't tell. I'd have to go in and look at the detail, a lot of the budget amendments. What I typically will do is send a list to Rachel to put the agenda together. I can start copying you on that, and that has our recommendations from finance as to what we think should go on consent versus what we think should go on the budget committee agenda. If you would like me to do that, I'd be happy to forward that to you, and then that would help you maybe make that determination as to what goes on the consent agenda.
I just know that sometimes we're dealing with large sums of money, and
Correct.
and a lot of commissioners would rather see that on the commission agenda for discussion instead of on the consent agenda. And I'm once again trying to learn this a little bit. Although I've been around a long time, I've seen consent agendas that are a mile long. I know Robert appreciates that more than he can probably say, but I think Mayor Carr is also trying to learn what should be on the consent agenda and what shouldn't. So most of those things come out of budget, by the way. So
I do want to echo what Mark said earlier. Our recommendation is always going to be to vote on it separate if it comes out of fund balance. That's always going to be our recommendation. And that is reflected in Mark's email that he sends Rachel. So
I don't believe there's any other business. Anybody want to make an announcement, anything like that? I do have one comment I want to make. Our finance director, during the hiring process, he and I had a discussion, which I was authorized to make an offer. He and his family had a vacation scheduled for this coming week when we happened to have a commission meeting scheduled now. At the time we didn't. I told him, please, take his vacation time. Anyway, Lisa will be filling in for him at our next commission meeting. Just to let you know, this was something that we had talked about prior. So anyway, Michael, we appreciate you. That may be classified.
I do apologize. We had booked this trip back when I worked for a school system. We had already booked a fall break trip, and that school system's fall break happens to be next week. And I'm almost a little more scared of my wife than I am y'all. So
Okay.
I expect you to hold Lisa to the same high standard. So you promised me that, Commissioner Goots, when I got hired,
Being no further business, we're adjourned.